All right, it is Eric, it is Mental. We are back from the Tony Swan Never-Say-Die Memorial race at Gingerman Raceway. Now, this is, of course, one of our favorite races, and Gingerman, great racetrack, and Tony Swan, a good friend of ours, an automotive journalist, emeritus from Car and Driver, who passed away recently. We do this race in his honor, and his team brought his old Honda Prelude, which sounded great.
And also, hella sweet, Mary's Hamilton song. Every year, Mary writes a song just for the race. It sounded great. It was topical as always. And Eric, as you would expect, absolutely nailed it.
You can join me on the J-Lam claims. I'll point at you, okay? J-Lam claims. Tony came to Lemon's HQ one day in distress and disarray. J-Lam claims. He's
Hella sweet as always. My favorite team, the Detroit Bus Student Racing Team. Andy Student showed up and made a solid run at Class C. Hella sweet.
But terrible, this race was 7/10 Racing in their Toyota MR2. Now, this is a car that has raced twice, and by raced, I mean shown up twice and turned 0 laps. Now, this time out, they brought a dynamite superstar of the automotive industry. I am talking, of course, about Ralph Gilles, the head of design for FCA. Chrysler.
Oh, no. Aren't they Daimler-Benz?
Daimler-Benz. Stellantis. He works for Stellantis. And he was racing this MR2, and guess who was driving when it broke terminally?
But terrible. Car number 31, Rod Thorough and Fools. Now, they had a chance at 3 wins and the regional championship this year. Blew up 2 of their actually not cheaty shots with a off-track excursion.
Now, Hella Sweet was the actual regional championship winners. Now, what is our regional championship? Basically, you get 3 points every time you enter a car, and you get points for finishing in the top 10, or you get points for bringing rookies. And this team, Dynamite Racing in their Volvo 245, one of the 5 slowest cars at every single race, but they cycled through basically an entire gigantic Midwestern family through the car. That was hella sweet. That's exactly what we want in a regional champion.
Now, real American things. Detroit.
Or Kenosha, as it were. Talking about the finger-tight racing AMC Gremlin, one of their leaf spring shackles kinda came unbolted, and, the entire rear fell out of the car as they were racing, dumped all of the transmission fluid out. That was butt terrible.
Hella sweet. Number 84, Freeze Farms Racing in their Chevy S10. Now, they Googled worst race car livery of all time. Naturally came up with an actual NASCAR tribute to Raid, road spray, and mustard on a real NASCAR entry. They also built a sweet pit cart out of a lawnmower.
We had several rotary or formerly rotary powered cars at this race. One of them was the Mazda RX-8, which had a very graphic representation of their feelings about LS swaps, which we're kind of into, except for the whole, peeing part.
Now, hella sweet, car 373, Team Orca, and their RX-7. Now, the engine is out of their Caprice, and it's a former Space Force paint job, but now they've moved on to the Red Bull gives you the bullshit.
Hella sweet, Dirty Mike and the boys and their Mazda RX-7. Again, no longer rotary powered. Now, there's a bit of backstory to this one. These guys have at least 2 heroic fixes, and the reason is that every single time they bring out their cheaty 350 and they blow it up, and then they put in this crappy 305 that actually runs. Now, this time they showed up with the 305 in it already, and a 70mm turbo.
Wow! These guys are completely anti-winning. They just want to build dumb things with their friends and have a sweet coloring book of their misadventures. Mission accomplished? mission accomplished.
Yeah. What that means is they burned 2 pistons, which they fixed by taking the 6-pound spring out of their turbo wastegate and doubling it to 12 pounds. The real only disappointing part was that it kind of just created this mist of oil all over the car, and it didn't kind of push the rods, 70 miles west into Lake Michigan the way they'd hoped for. Maybe next time, guys.
Several teams actually made back-to-back races because the weekend prior to this was National Corvette Museum, and one of those was the Hella Sweet Cheat Thrills Racing Cadillac, the ETC. Now, these North Star-loving Louisianans, it's Lemon's first XLR at NCM to go with their STS and, of course, the etc. Literally, the Cadillac ET etc.
Also running back-to-back weekends was Knox Vegas Lowballers and their high-performance machine, the Triumph TR8. Now, this car blew up its distributor at NCM and, of course, didn't really want to start. In between races, they managed to get the tow rig stuck in their yard after a heavy rain, so that was also a bit of a chuff. And then from there, they needed to get the car to Gingerman, which they did kinda without issue, where it promptly blew up a drive shaft and also melted a wheel bearing. That was all but terrible, but hella sweet that they were at back-to-back races.
Hella sweet as always. 403 TD Eyesore Racing in their VW Jetta TDI. I made sure to wear my matching outfit. Hella sweet. 125 B2 Racing in their Lobster Dodge Stealth. He brought a lobster-covered fiancé. I tell you though, next time it better be a whole team of lobster costumes.
St. Mary's Racing and their Ford Focus. I can't in good conscience say hella sweet or but terrible with this because they are parents of Catholic school children, and they're kind of great. They brought us the Lemons Rosary that was made out of lemons, and the Hail Mary beads were Ford cars. I'm not sure what to make of the bribe of wine bottles in the front seat with a doll, though.
Of hella sweet. This is the hella sweetest of the hella sweets, and that was number 94, the Capristi Boys. They showed up in a Caprice with a chop top. It had been sitting in a field for literally decades, still has nutshells all over the engine bay from the squirrels, raced with the shells still on the car. 305 spun a bearing. Yeah, that roof is chopped. Cut the roof to install the cage, and then just went ahead and took 5 more inches out of it. Badass.
Mental, what was it that put them out of the race?
I'm telling all of y'all, that was...
Hella sweet was Stay in Your Lane and their Honda Civic. These guys have raced with us for several years. One of their team members works for Johnny Lightning Diecast and is making his Civic into a diecast. That is super hella sweet. There's going to be more diecasts coming out. Also, these guys brought us a stamp that they made that we can use, and they kind of conflated the Why You Ruin Classic with the $500 my ass and made a Why You Ruin $500 stamp.
Incidentally, that was my mother's tattoo when she was a dancer. But terrible. Number 19, the Volex 20. Bulgarian built, small crossover SUV. Let's let our friends from Bulgaria refresh your memory.
Ставеният днес автомобил ви хареса на цена от 15 990 лева с ДДС и едни от най-добрите лизингови условия, 5 години пълна гаранция. Той е един много добър избор за всеки. Надявам се да се убедите сами в най-близкия автосалон на Great Wall.
Now, it's actually run by a Lemons all-star team, so to speak. 3 to 4 team captains running it together. One of them, Lemon's notorious good guy, Brett Sloman, goes to China regularly for work and managed to smuggle back in some speed parts. Unfortunately, on his first lap in the car, Brett rolled the Volex, banned for a year.
Now, that said, we might see Brett again in the penalty box as a judge because he is a good dude. And aside from the odd, moment, knows what's up. So you may see Judge Brett in the near future.
But terrible, 123 and 553 E39 BMWs, super cheaty late model BMWs, and they're boring. Bailey blew up the LS swap, and then the Polka Kings hucked a wheel. But they did lend parts between the two of them.
Speaking of Andy Bailey and his cheaty BMW, Andy managed to borrow my guitar and write a quick song in the penalty box from his car about how he sucks, and that was hella sweet.
I'm stuck driving today 'cause my car might blow up, and my car really sucks today 'cause everything is broken, and my car really sucks today.
The reason I had brought my guitar was to make penalized teams rewrite classic songs, again, talking about how they suck at racing. And, I didn't have super high expectations, but these guys, they kind of crushed it.
What if that envelope was so special? Glad we're not special.
Getting on to the trophies, the Road Mangler Cup went to 22 Lane Meyer Motorsports Chevy Camaro. Aside from the excellent Great Team Name Better Off Dead reference, it was a first-time team, and they came with a great theme of catfish noodling.
I got so much water in my ear.
Heroic Fix went to Tonk and the Interference Fits and their Buick Reatta. Again, an awesome name. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's because they won the I Got Screwed trophy at Gingerman just like 3 months before this for blowing up their Reatta and not fixing it. Now, about the swap that is in this car. There are pluses to putting a supercharged V6 in it. Number one, you get 240 horsepower instead of whatever it was originally. It's more. You get more. And you have the sweet supercharger whine, and that's hella sweet, and you get street cred for doing all this hard work. On the negative side, everything blows up faster because you have more power, and then because you did all this weird swap stuff, nothing kind of goes back together in the way that you think it's gonna.
Now, in this case, the ball joint backed out. Cotter pin, either broker, wasn't there at all. So they had to find the right sized half shaft. One side is Buick Reatta. One side is Pontiac G6. But there are a whole bunch of different G6 ones because General Motors. So they had to go to several parts stores and finally got it to run, beat their 2 laps from June.
I Got Screwed went to Sakai Racing and their Dodge Nia. We love these guys. They're out for fun. They're not trying to win anything. They're Gingerman regulars. They're always at the track with their Lemons car, their other car, and they bring us both a pit vehicle to travel in, and they bring us Lucy, who is an amazing dog and adorable, and apparently also likes to drive the race car. They happen to bring 2 Dodge Neons that are more or less identical, and usually one of them blows up and they run the other one. This time was a little bit different. The main good one launched one of its connecting rods through the block. It was returned to us from the tow driver, still warm, and then we looked over the guardrail where they had their other car on the track, and it was sitting off in the grass and had blown up in the exact same way. There's probably a lesson in here about trying to cheat. I couldn't possibly imagine what it might be. They got screwed.
Every race we try to have a regional award, and this was the know when to fold them, know when to hold them, and it went to 49 Premature Combustion and their wonderfully themed Brewster Baker 6-pack Ford Fairmont. Now, this is the University of Northwest Ohio, and they built this car ages ago with a 4-cylinder in it. They brought it back as a generic race car with a home-built, old-school-looking double dual Ram Air 302 in it. It was hella sweet.
Judge's Choice went to the League of Legitimate Nigerian Businessmen. We have talked about this team many times. Boy, where to even start? They brought 2 cars at this race. Their good car was a Subaru Outback that blew up its engine. Now, these guys repeatedly and for reasons we can't possibly explain, and of their own volition, snort pixie sticks to get the car into Class C. They think that's actually how this works. I don't know, doesn't really matter. They blew it up. They begged us not to give them a heroic fix because they swapped the engine. They are sick of getting heroic fix trophies. All of that was fine because they brought us another car that we absolutely adore, and that is of course the Simca 1204. This car has some history. It was raced on the West Coast by the one and only Spank, where it won an index of affluency, and then it migrated to the Midwest, where our resident official-ish bacon cook Soggy raced it for several years. Then he kind of put it in his back 40 and let it sit for 5, 6, 7. The counting's not very easy, but it was a long time. And he turned the car over to the League of Legitimate Nigerian Businessmen with several tubs of parts that might have been partially filled with water. They kind of dried some of it out. They kind of made the car run. It blew smoke all weekend. They kind of hated driving it, which is kind of the French driving experience. Sacre bleu!
Organizer's choice went to 750 to Flying Pigs Racing and that infamous pink Ford Mustang. These guys really get it. We wanted to recognize a team that totally gets what Lemons is doing. They've run Lemons for a decade now, and most of that they've run a Fox-bodied Mustang like a Flying Pig, complete with 50 plus pounds of plywood wings and a giant nose that no doubt spoils anything resembling aerodynamic efficiency. Still, they managed to put their Mustang in the top 5 in almost every race, and we have repeatedly seen them helping other people fix their cars. They've been talking shops. They are the paragons of Midwest nice.
Index of affluency went to Little Enos Racing and their Ford Tempo. This year has been the year of the Tempo. We've had 2 Ford Tempos debut. They both won IOE, and we've had 4 of them all time, and 3 of those have won IOE. You want an IOE? Bring a Ford Tempo. And I have the bias because I had one and I know how bad they are. They are terrible cars. With all of that said, like most good IOE candidates, Little Enos's Tempo could have just been the theme of really crappy car. It kind of works. It's a Ford Tempo. It's a really crappy car. But these guys found a photo of an old National Weather Service storm chasing fleet that was made up entirely of Ford Tempos. And I can't think of a possibly worse car to go chasing a storm in than something with 88 horsepower that weighs about 3,000 pounds. Pretty awful, awful, awful idea, and therefore kind of at the paragon of government fleet purchasing. It looked like it had come out of a Lifetime Network version of Twister. It was ridiculous. The car was amazingly slow and beat more than half the field. That's kind of what you got to do. Bring a Ford Tempo. It is the way to go.
Look at the camera. Look, don't embarrass me in front of my friends. Look at. Should we do Lemons in a nutshell? And now, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
And now Lemons in a nutshell.
But I'm asleep. I've got no talent. What the hell am I doing here? The car still belongs here. The car still belongs here.
Алуминиеви джанти, както и огледалата с вградени светлодиодни светлини, също са част от стандартното оборудване. Погледнат отзад, автомобила има приятна и завършена линия.
Did you hear the news about good old Tony Swan? No. You know Gingerman? Yeah. We renamed it after him. The Swan legacy is secure. Sure. All he had to do was die. That's a lot less work. We should give it a try. Swan said, I want to write about your race, and basically begged for complicity. J-Lam claims, I usually have no respect for journalists, but I need some publicity. J-Lam claims, I want to win all the nickels, win all the nickels, win all the nickels. I want to win, I want to win, I want to win! Click, boom!